Hello, this is Allie with the Perception Trainers, author of The Perception Diet, and today we are going to start our series on emotional mastery. Alright, so this is essentially the subject that I have been talking about in every single one of my videos since the beginning of time. However, I really felt like it was time for me to kind of break down this idea of emotional mastery, why it's so important, and to give you actual practical processes that you can use to actually get yourself into this state of emotional mastery, because this process and this concept and all the ideas that go along with it are essentially the thing you need for personal growth and personal transformation to the point where we can change the planet. Okay, so this is like no small thing, and I really hope that you are able to watch all the parts and take all this in and get to a point where you recognize how important this is in your life, how much your emotions and your lack of emotional mastery is causing all of your problems, and that you really get into a place where you're ready to take on these practices that I'm going to give you, so that you can essentially first and foremost free yourself and then radiate that out into the world. Okay, so in the first couple of videos I'm going to explain to you how your brain works. Okay, so first, where the genesis of all your negative emotions is, okay, where they all came from, and I can simplify it, and we'll get there. Okay, so we're going to look at that. We're going to look at the programs that you run on a daily basis that are hurting and harming you. We're going to look at how biology is a mirror to us of our mental and spiritual and emotional selves. We're going to look at why we have gotten ourselves into this emotional dark age and how it has affected us so deeply and profoundly. And we're going to start to look at how being left brain dominant is essentially keeping us in this negative spiral, and why switching into a right brain dominant place is so important for actual change and transformation. We're going to talk about why you have all the self-destructive behaviors that you have, and then I'm going to give you two processes: a beginner emotional mastery process and a more advanced emotional mastery process, in order to give you the skills and the tools that you need to become emotionally masterful, so that you can change your life. Because this has profound implications. When you are capable of being your own master, when you are self-governing, when you are master of your own self, you are the most powerful being on the planet. Okay? You have powers beyond measure. There's so much here. Okay? You will have so much more access to all the information that you want to have. You want to be able to access the Akashic records. You want to be able to tell the future. You want to be able to read what's going on with somebody in their body or in their mind or in their emotions. You want to be able to like tune into people and like figure out what's going on. That's all available to you. You completely have the capacity for doing that. That's normal stuff. Okay? You don't have to be special. You don't have to be anything. Nobody is more special than anybody else and can have access to those things where other people just can't. Okay? It's a mindset. It's a state. And I'm going to teach you, because you can do it. There's literally nothing holding you back. Okay, so let's start with this. Emotional mastery is something that basically all the ancient spiritual paths that actually lead you anywhere valuable are essentially teaching you this. Okay? They are teaching you how to become the master and the witness and the awareness that you are, rather than living in the small, contracted, left part of the brain ruled by your emotions and your thoughts, little ego that essentially leads to all of your suffering, okay? So this is not new information. Nothing that I'm saying here is anything that I made up. I don't claim ownership over any of this, not even the process, the two processes that I'm going to give you. I didn't make this up. Don't give me any credit for this, okay? This is simply information that has been passed down and passed down and passed down and passed down. And I'm just going to keep passing it because it's real and it's true and it is absolutely what you need to free yourself, okay? So, like I say, any path that is worth its salt is teaching you emotional mastery. And there are many different techniques and many different paths and many different ways of doing this, but essentially this is what's happening, okay? And why this is so important, okay, is because when you are not living in an emotionally masterful place, you are running a program. And so let's start with this. What do I mean by running a program and why is this a problem? Okay, so from the age of 0 to 7, scientists now understand that your brain is in a theta wave state, okay? And what this means is that you are in a state where you are essentially in a hypnotic trance. You are simply observing the reality that you have been born into, and you are downloading the specific programs that are specific to that reality. All right? So if for some reason you were born into an enlightened family, right? And your mom and your dad are fully awake and fully enlightened. They're completely in alignment with what reality is. They're completely in alignment, so they're awake to the ultimate, right? They understand the ultimate truth of oneness and all the universal laws and themselves as being a part of that. And then they also understand the little I, the relative truth, that each individual is here in a specific perspective, and it's supposed to be that way. Your specific perspective is the way that it's supposed to be. And so you, as a part of the ultimate, are having your specific experience, and you are then capable of being completely in alignment with reality and creating within it, which is the ideal state. That would be what you would download, and you would do that, okay? Most of us are not born into that, okay? Most of us are born into situations where there's social conditioning and context, where there's fear-based thought patterns and belief patterns, where our parents are completely out of alignment with reality, as in pain states, right? And there's all this trauma, essentially, emotional trauma, mental trauma, that you are then absorbing from your environment, and it is becoming a part of your programming, your view of yourself, your view of reality. By the time you're 7, so many of these programs are in place, right? And that you still will have bits and pieces of your personality, bits and pieces of your individuality, bits and pieces that come through if they were socially acceptable, right? But a large portion of who and what you are, and a large portion of your awareness and your consciousness is going to be shut down, okay? And you're going to be running a program rather than being conscious, okay? So you're going to be conforming yourself to societal expectation. You're going to be trying to live up to what your parents think is good and right. You're going to essentially be in a state where you are divorced from reality. As in, you are not simply saying, what is happening is what is supposed to happen, right? I fully and completely trust all the circumstances of my life, and from that place, I am just present with the circumstances of my life, and then behaving accordingly in response to the actual situation, right? Instead, you have programming that tells you this is how people are supposed to act, this is how I'm supposed to act, this is what is supposed to happen in life, these are the things that are not supposed to happen in life. And then so when any of that doesn't happen, you become upset. Okay? Also in here is essentially the root of all emotional pain. Because as you're being programmed, okay, as you're being programmed, and I talked about this in my shame video. If you want to go back and watch the shame video, the video on how to deal with shame, this is essentially what I was talking about in this video. Is that as you're being programmed, because the programs are out of alignment with reality, nobody's parents probably are enlightened. And if they are, and if you're watching this, I don't really know why you're watching this, because you're probably already emotionally masterful. Because we are divorced from nature, okay, we are in a fear state all the time. This is what the fall was, okay? So if you've ever heard any biblical story, any spiritual story, any traditional religious spiritual stories, they all have this story about the fall. And the fall was not an actual thing that happened where Adam and Eve ate an apple and then were cast out of the garden, okay? That's a metaphor, okay? What the fall really represents is essentially the birth of thought, right? It's where humans in our consciousness, rather than being in a state where we are experiencing reality and under the assumption that everything that's happening should be happening, right? So whatever is happening, and then we are capable of processing that immediately, understanding it, discerning it, and learning from it, having the experience, and essentially being joyful in any experience, because any and all experience is what's supposed to be happening. We got this idea that, you know, there are good and bad things. There are things that should and things that should not be happening. And therefore, when things that we have decided shouldn't happen, we are divorced from nature, right? There's a fall, there's a separation, we are in pain, right? When we think something should happen and it doesn't, we are divorced from nature, we are divorced from reality, we are divorced from what's actually happening, and this causes us pain and suffering, all right? So now apply this to the programming, right? So your parents then have all of these ideas of what reality is supposed to be like, what you as their child is supposed to be like, how we as a society are supposed to function, right? And you come in being a fractal of God, a unique individual who has a unique perspective that is not going to fit into any particular box, right? And so you come in fully in alignment with reality, fully in alignment with nature. You're not thinking what is happening shouldn't be happening and what should be happening isn't happening. You're just going along with whatever you are and whatever's happening. And so you express yourself, you start to express yourself as this is my genuine who I am and what I'm doing. And if that does not align with the programming that your parents have, right, you will be shamed. You will be rejected, you will be traumatized. Inside of that, that's an abandonment wound, okay? As soon as you do not live up to the expectation, so out of alignment with reality, expectation of your parents or your caregivers or whoever was raising you, you will be abandoned by them because that's the program they're running. You see what I'm saying? Because it's fear, right? The program is always based in fear. When we're running a program, we are in a fear state. When we are in alignment with reality, there's no program, we're not in fear, we're in love, and we are flowing with what's happening, okay? Your parents are in a fear state in their programming because they never questioned their programming. So then you act out of alignment with the programming, their automatic response is going to be to abuse or abandon you, okay? And because you're so young and you're in this state of theta, you're just taking it in and you're absorbing it, and because you have the survival mechanism in place that when my parents don't love me, I will die, and I don't want to die, I have a survival instinct, okay? You start to have these places where you have emotional wounds, okay? So you start to take on this imprinting of the emotional wound of I'm not good enough, right? You didn't live up to your parents' expectation in some way, and maybe the message that you got from that was that you're not good enough. And because you're in this fragile state, this becomes a part of your programming. This becomes a part of your self-image that is then essentially permanently seared in there until you learn emotional mastery, okay? So if you have an experience of not having enough, like everyone else has a certain toy and you don't get it, okay? because your parents tell you it's too expensive. That's going to sear into your consciousness and your being that there is not enough money, you don't have what you need, you can't have the abundance that everyone else has. And that's going to be a part of your self-image. So let me give you an example. In my life, as I've been doing this process on myself for many, many years, I realized that I had a programming that taught me that my body was broken, which meant, because that was my self-image, because that was my programming, and because that was a program that I did not question and did not look at and didn't realize what was going on, all of my choices and all of my behaviors and all of my self-sabotaging stuff essentially came from this one belief. And I was continuing to run this program that my body was broken. And so even as I was trying to heal my body, I was sabotaging myself more than I was actually healing myself because I was running the program. Okay, you see what I'm saying, how powerful this is? I was not even aware of the choices that would actually lead to me healing, because I was so entrenched in my program that anything that looked like anything that was actually going to keep me sick was attractive to me, and because of my filter, because of my programming. And I continued to do that. And anytime I would get even, like, I would transcend sickness for a little while, I would sabotage myself, right? Because that was the program that I needed to run. You see? It's very, very powerful, and it's very, very subtle. And then at the same time, running that program caused negative emotions. All right? So this is where the negative emotion thing comes in. When we are running programs, we are in a state of fear. It can be no other way. All right? When we're not being present in the moment, in alignment with reality, we are running a program, we are in a state of fear. That is base, bottom line, always how it works. Okay? When we are in a state of fear, it is reflecting to us an emotional trauma that happened to us sometime between ages 0 and 7. Okay? Where we had that abandonment wound from who we are, right? Where we actually divorced ourselves from nature, where we divorced ourselves from reality. That's where that negative emotion comes from, right? We developed a false belief about ourselves and about reality, and that created a negative emotion because our emotions are our guidance system, right? We took that on, and then that became a part of our programming that we didn't question, and then we've just been repeating that and repeating that and repeating that and repeating that over and over and over again, and we're not aware of it. We're not even aware of our programming. All we know is that we don't like this negative emotion, we don't like our self-sabotaging behavior, we don't like all of our things that we do over and over again, and we can't seem to get ourselves out of it, we can't seem to get ourselves to change. We try really, really, really hard and do all the self-improvement stuff and all the personal growth work and try all the life coaching skills and go to all the seminars and read all the books, and yet we still kind of have the same life, right? We still kind of have the same problems, the same emotional feelings, the same mental states for years and years and years and years and years. We convince ourselves that we're doing something different when really we're doing the same thing in a different way, right? We are always surprised that we get the same results over and over and over again in our lives, right? So this is like, when we look at this, it's like, you know, you're kind of like working the same jobs, having the same kind of relationships, having the same kind of, you know, experience inside your body, having the same kind of health issues, right? There may be variations, right? Maybe you change jobs and maybe you have different diseases and maybe you heal one and get another one, or maybe you leave this kind of relationship and get into another one, but it's all the same shit. When you really look at it, it's all the same shit. It's because you're running a program, okay? And when you're not aware of it, because you're divorced from your emotions, you can't change the program. And until you change the program, you will never change your reality. Okay, so that's part one. You are running programs. If there's ever a point where you drop into thought, you have a program. And we'll talk about thought in the next video or whatever. If there's ever a point where you drop into a contracted state where you are at odds with reality, if you have any self-destructive behaviors, you are running a program. Okay, if there's anything about you that you try to change over and over again and you can't change it, you're running a program. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to talk more about the brain and why switching into right brain consciousness is so important. And then I think in the third video I'll just kind of wrap this up and then I'll give you process. Okay, so until then, just think about this. Think about this program thing. Like, subscribe, share. Look into Dr. Bruce Lipton's work. Look into Martha Beck's work. They talk a lot about this, and I'll see you in the next video.